Hey guys, thanks for joining me. My name's Chris Adams, and today we're going to learn how to tie a crab fly called a Gav's crab. Now the Gav's crab was designed by a friend of mine called Gavin Davis. It's a very simple, fast fly to tie, but many people would consider it to be a technically perfect fly. Now let's talk about what that means. I guess we need to talk about what we want a crab fly to do if we're going to talk about a technical fly. Now we've got a fly here that lands hook point up every time, and the way that happens is through a clever assembly of materials. The way Gavin has designed this fly, he not only uses the weight to flip the hook point over, but also the materials are assembled in a way so that the drag that the materials take through the water also assists that fly in flipping over. In addition to both of those factors, he's also designed it in a way so the leader also helps that from happening as well. Helps that happen as well. Many of you have already got the kits and the materials from beastbrushes.com, but let's go through those materials if you haven't got them already so you know what to get. And then we'll get into building the fly. Thanks very much. So let's go through the materials. I feel like most people, you'll have bought the kit from Beast Brushes, and in the kit you'll see you've got 30 centimeters of 1/4 inch flexo tube, and that works out to be 50 centimeters per crab. 50 mil per crab, rather. Sorry. You've got your Stream Art moon crab legs in there, 6 of. You've got hooks down the bottom there. Now they're the Arex SA220s. Okay, for small, medium, large, which is the range that the legs come in if you want to buy your own components outside the kit. We work on size 4, size 2, and size 1 respectively. Also in the kit you've got the shake that down a bit. You can see there, tungsten putty, 15 grams. You know, there's probably more in there than you'll need. Not far off it though. You know, just about enough for a kit. For the 6 crabs, I should say. We will go through how I weigh the tungsten putty and how I put it on. It's a bit different to how Gavin does it, which is the pictures on my website. I'll show you Gavin using wire and a lead sinker. I like the I like the tungsten because I can weigh it, I can remove it, I can move it, it's just so much easier to deal with, and it's faster, and you'll see what I mean. It won't go anywhere. It's not a compromise or anything like that. It's in my opinion, it's better. Tungsten uses much less real estate than lead, which is the go. So you'll need some of this E6000 glue, or a clear, waterproof and flexible. Waterproof and flexible being the 2 key words there. Glue, okay? Don't use super glue. Super glue is brittle. If you hit it against a gunnel or a boat or pliers or something, it'll come undone. It's also not waterproof, so if your flies are sitting there in the box wet overnight, there's a good chance that the glue will come undone. Using the new Raidzap bobbin with some 210 Flymaster, just in tan. Look, I've tried it with the lower denier threads. It's a bit of a hassle. I don't really like it. It breaks a bit. Good pair of scissors. Look, the scissors are good, but I use these like side cutters for the flexo tube as well. And just a UV torch. That's a pretty. I've had that one since Raidzap's been out. It's a Trojan, but I am going to use a laser pen because it's a bit more accurate. So the Stream Art legs, as they come in, they're not a soft plastic. That's how they are when they come in the packs by themselves. And a lot of people have a problem with them, but you'll hear a lot of people refer to fly tying for crabs, as crafting, and that's pretty accurate. I guess we're sort of building it. But if you've got a problem with these, well, I guess you'd be good at deer hair because you won't be using these, and I guess you're really good at resin because you won't be using these. And forget these, you wouldn't want to be using them. My point is, there's a lot of pre-made products in fly tying. If you think they're soft plastics, get over yourself. If they were assembled on the hook, just thread it on like a soft plastic, I would tend to agree with you, but I don't, in regards to the way they get used. All right, let's get in. I'm pretty sure I've covered everything there. I believe I have. Let's zoom in and get tying. Okay, so what I've got on the vise right there is I've got the SA220. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how, or where, the way that I bend them to suit the way I tie the Gavs crab. And we'll cut to that now, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I want to show you the difference between these hooks. So these hooks are Arex SA 220s, number 4s. That's how they come out of the pack, and that's the bend that you've got to put in it. Now you can see there, get around a different angle here, try and get some different light, that the bend isn't right on the eye. Okay, so it's back, about half an eye back before it starts to bend. That'll make it much easier for you to get that flexo on there and give you plenty of room. Okay folks, we're back. I hope that made sense with the bending the hook. I got a little vise that's just on my, like a normal clamp vise that's on my desk here that I use. The pliers will be fine. You just got to make sure you're bending it into the shank right there, not right at the eye. Okay. Alright, let's get started. So we want to put a bed of thread on. So I'll give you a tip right from the word go. You want to put a decent amount of thread just where the wire returns back onto the shank as they form the eye. There can be a little lip there, and that can cut your thread later on. So this is a round thread. It's going to look like rope. Close up, I'm sure. But you know, we want a nice, make sure there's no gaps in the thread that expose the hook there. You want a really decent bed of thread on there. This will stop the fly from spinning. Not that it's a problem with a soft carapace for hook set. Some of the hard carapaces can be have an issue with spinning and closing up the hook gate. Anyway, you want to get that thread, like you can see here, way up the bend there, and then flip it over. Okay, so we're going to put our flexo tube on now. So just like any old flexo crab, you'll have to excuse the hands while I get this started. You want it to sort of be as up on that bend as you can. Okay, you can sort of see where it is there. Now I'm going to just get some thread wraps on that and finish that off. Make sure your thread comes up off the flexo tube you've just tied on as well. Give it some good thread purchase there. Okay, now we're going to advance your thread forward, and I'm going to show you the first trick that I do with this. So what I like to do, as opposed to when the legs are on and stuff like that, is I like to stretch this stuff. So I like to get a good sort of bend going on there. So you can see that I've opened it up at the end there. Okay, try not to ruin it. I think I might have stretched a bit too much. No, it'd be fine. Anyway, so just to give it a bit of a stretch there, so it's got a nice, like, good angle where it comes off from where you've tied it in. Put it that way maybe. Okay, so you can get a nice shell going on like that. If you don't stretch it and it ends up being on an angle like that, you just have a smaller carapace. I'm sure fish will still eat that. So I'm just going to grab a clip, and I've just got like a little hair clip here. I'm just going to get that up and out of the way. Right, so what I'm doing here, the hook I'm using is the small one, and this is the fiddliest and the hardest one to use for sure. Okay, so I've got the Stream Art legs here. These are the small ones. You'll notice that one side is more realistic than the other. You know, it's up to you if you want it. It doesn't really, I mean, make it as realistic as you want. Use the right side. It's up to you. I don't think it's going to make that big a difference. Okay, so I'm just going to secure this on. Again, excuse the fingers please, just while I get this on. So all I'm doing is just putting a couple of wraps through the center one way, just loose, and then the same thing the other way. Okay, so I'm just loosening that thread off there so I can still move it. So what I want to do, what I want to figure out, okay, is where to put these legs. Okay, if I just put it that way, you can see they're not straight. It's not a big deal right now. They're just a couple of loose wraps straight over the center there, just a couple of X wraps, 2 one way, 2 the other way. And what you'll see here is that my flexo tube ends up right in line with, well, with that claw there, you can see there. But where it'll finish here ends up sort of a little bit not quite the same. So I need to move it a little bit this way, that way. So I'm just going to pinch it because I've just used loose wraps. Just going to move it a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to check it. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Right, so what I'm going to do now is all I'm going to do is just going to move the legs out of the way, and I'm going to advance my thread there. Now you're probably thinking that's not enough thread to really hold those legs there. Don't wig out, things will be okay. Right, so now we've got our flexo tube loose, and we're going to squeeze it up, and we're going to make sure we've got a carapace, as you can see there, like that. And like any sort of flexo crab, what I'm going to do is, before I expand any of the tube, I'm just going to put a couple of loose wraps over there. Right, and then I'm just going to expand the tube out to where I want it, which is about there. Just going to make sure I'm happy with that carapace there, and I'm ecstatic about it. So I'm just going to a couple of thread wraps over there, and then I'm going to just do a few around the hook. I highly recommend this process for doing this, around the hook and the flexo, and then behind it. So you can go back and count how many wraps I've done there, but I've created my carapace there, as you can see. I've got a little bit of mucking around with it to do yet, so don't stress too much about it. So all you're really looking for is proportion with the carapace right now. Okay? Okay. Now I'm just going to trim this flexo tube carefully. Heat is better than what I'm doing right now. If I cut my thread, I'm going to pretend like I haven't, so you'll never know. Thankfully, I have not. So I'm just going to conceal all that flexo tube. Like I said, heat's better. If you got like a cautery tool or cauterizing tool, just trim it off with that. I would recommend going over it with some sealant first, which I'm about to with this. Okay, once I've got that on there, gonna whip finish. Reach out for my Array Zap super thin to finish off the threads. This stuff's like water. It's gonna penetrate really well, soak into the thread, and make it essentially bomb proof. These flies take not long to tie, so it's not that essential. I mean, it's a real sort of guide fly for sure. It's quick, it's easy, it's effective, gets you on the water. Right, so I'm just going to set that stuff off. Good thing about Ray Zap is you can use any wavelength UV light, unlike the competing brands that specify a certain wavelength. The Ray Zap's quite durable like that. Well, it's the only resin of its kind on the market. It's the only one that's urethane. The rest of them are polyester resins or vinyl ester resins. You guys can figure it out. This is not an ad for Ray Zap, but I use Ray Zap because it's good for me. It's good to use, good durable flies, and it's non-toxic. Okay, so now we're going to put the lead tungsten. Oh, sorry, the tungsten on. Now that's going to go there. Okay. Now what I've got here is a small ball of tungsten putty. As you can see, it's pliable. I can do whatever I want with it. It's like blue tack, if you're familiar with that. But I've weighed it out, and what I did was, I already know this because I've tied a few of these so far, is I know that with the weight of that, I add 2.1 grams of tungsten. I've got a 3.5 gram crab, which is pretty heavy. I don't think you really need that with this, but I'm just going to tie a couple for myself because that's what I've got permit on. But I really believe that I'll experiment more and run with some lighter weights, you know, maybe 2 gram crabs. The selection of materials here, as we went through at the beginning, in the very intro there, will allow us to be able to have a fly that doesn't need the weight to flip it over as much because we're using drag through the water to flip it over in addition to the weight. Okay, so what I do with this is I've been rolling in a ball while I've been waffling on, and I'm just going to flatten it. So I've got a little tiny pancake going on there, and I'm just going to put it right in the middle of that fly. Just going to sit it there like that. I'm going to get my thumb and forefinger, make sure it's right in the middle, and I'm going to press it over so it's like that. Now, that would probably stay there. You know, I don't know your experience of who you are when you're watching this, but plenty of hard body lures for conventional guys get custom weighted so they float slower or sink even with tungsten putty, and it stays on all day. It's very hard to get off, in fact. But for this circumstance, just to bulletproof it, I'm just going to pull it off. So I've got an impression there, so that's the hook shank and some of the legs. I'm going to put it down and grab my trusty pal, the old E6000 waterproof and flexible glue. I'm going to put a dob right in the middle. Oh, got it a little bit everywhere, but hey, probably best to have more glue than not enough. And just remembering what way I put this on, I am just going to press that back on there. Just clean up a bit of glue. And just make sure it's not tilted one way, too far forward, too far the other way, and you can move your fly at this point to cater for it. So I've got a fly, so you can see the weight there. We're not done yet. I've gotta bring the legs up. I've got to bring the legs up so they're sitting up like that. We want them to be slightly up. You know, you can imagine that, you know, that tungsten will sit in the sand and the legs have to be exposed, so they need to be up a little bit. I'm going to let that dry for a couple of seconds, and then I'm going to show you. This stuff takes hardly anything to dry. You know, go have a cup of coffee and she'll be almost cured. Not exactly, but you know what I mean. All right, so the glue's dry, well, dry enough anyway. So what I'm going to do is I've got a small bottle of Raidzap Flex. Okay, use the flexible resin. Okay, you don't want it to be cracking or you know, shattering or anything like that. If you hit, you know, the guide, the boat, rocks, pliers, all that sort of stuff, the Flex is the go. So what I'm going to be doing, okay, just to show you this way, because I'll speed it up while I go through it, is I'm going to be using the needle applicator to put a little dob there and a little dob there, and then I'm going to get my finger and I'm going to hold it straight to the bottom of the carapace there, and I'm going to set it with the UV light. And I'll show you what that does in just a moment. I'll just speed through this. Okay, so what we've got here, as you can see, now just to display it this way, is I've got almost like a little bit of a curve going on in my legs, you can see there, okay? That's because we want it to fall through the water this way. If it was the other way around, like that, the water would catch underneath that and want to flip it over. Now we've got a lot of things like the weight, and we've got the eye, the hook turned up, which uses the leader to flip it over as well, that are in our advantage. But you know, with these added adjustments, or when we're tying, or these added considerations, I should say, we've got a fly that basically guarantees it to land the right way up. Okay, so that's what we've got going on there, a little bit there. So you can see it's a dead ringer for a moon crab. The only other thing that I'm going to do just quickly is I'm going to just coat the bottom of the that tungsten putty with a little bit of resin. Again, just a Flex. You can go around, you can conceal the edge of the resin, the edge of the tungsten with resin, I should say, and that will just enable you to have a more durable fly, so water doesn't catch it. If you were to destroy this fly and just you know, try and pull it apart and reverse engineer it, I think you'll find that that tungsten putty is so incredibly stuck to it that you would, you know, when you realize it doesn't come off, you wouldn't be surprised. Alright, so that's all I'm doing there. So, you know, you didn't use glue with any of that, which you don't really need to. You know, you might sort of sacrifice those legs not skewing up like that, but I still think that they're so flexible, these legs, that it probably wouldn't be that big a deal anyway. But there you go. That's the Gavs crab. Again, invented by a good friend of mine, Gavin Davis. And I hope that you tie this fly and you catch permit, goldies, tuskies, bastards, Harry Hot Lips, or wherever you are in the world. If you're looking at this crab and liking it, I hope it goes well for you too, because it's a real banger, that's for sure. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and grab the kits from beastbrushes.com and grab the components, or if you've got any other questions, try not to reach out. I'm a very busy man. No, I'm only kidding. Yeah, shoot us an email to beastbrushes.com. beastbrushes@gmail.com. And look, I'm pretty slack on emails, but I'll get to them eventually. But pretty self-explanatory fly. Have a good one, folks. Thanks for watching.